welcome to Cooking with the Pikensteiners. Today we are making our douchebag risotto. This is actually Anna's recipe. I had never made risotto until she taught me how to do this. It's one of those things that I was very afraid of. I always chucked it in the too hard basket, but it's actually very simple as long as you've got a little bit of time and patience up your sleeve. There's not a lot of ingredients. We've got some diced chicken, cream cheese, avocado, sun-dried tomatoes, chicken stock, the risotto rice, and some white wine. So we're all set up on the stove now. With risotto, it's a lot about patience and timing. It's not actually that complicated. You've just got to be doing quite a lot of stirring. What we've done is we've just cooked the chicken off and put it aside just with some garlic and salt and pepper. It's just easier to do that so you don't have to worry about that while you're worrying about the rice. With our chicken stock, we've popped it in a pot and just put it on the stove to warm it up. We've found that it works a lot better when you are cooking the rice through in the pot if the stock goes in hot, not in cold. So all we're going to do now is add in our risotto rice, which is Aborio rice. We are using 1 cup with about 500, 600 grams of chicken, and that'll feed sort of 2 or 3 adults or a couple of adults and a couple of kids. Okay, so just to start out with, it's important not to have your pot too hot, especially in the earlier stages as the rice and the ingredients will burn before they start to absorb too much of the liquid. So Anna's just put in a little bit of olive oil to start, and then she's going to add in some garlic as well. Now she's just going to add in the dry 1 cup of Aborio rice straight into the pot with the garlic and oil. And we just want to quickly stir that around and let that garlic and oil glaze over the rice and start that heating process to get everything going. So now that the rice is all glazed over, we're going to add our first amount of stock. We're putting about a good ladle's worth in, so that's probably about 60 or 80 mils worth of stock in each time. And what we're going to do is let that absorb into the rice completely before we add any more liquid in. So this is the slow process. We want all the liquid to absorb into the rice before we make it too wet and become nice and fluffy and soft at the end. So the first amount of liquid that you put in will probably absorb the quickest out of all of them. So as you can see, it's just starting to come together. A lot of the liquid's been absorbed already. There's not much left in the pan. And you can see the rice starting to stick as well. And that's when you're safe to start putting more liquid in. So now we're about halfway through our stock. Anna's going to start adding in the white wine. Now we're using Moscato. You can use whatever white wine you want. It doesn't really matter. We just like the extra bit of sweetness that goes in with it. Now Anna's pro tip is that if you have to stand at the kitchen for about half an hour and you're going to use wine, you might as well pour yourself a glass as well. Now we find it really important when we're using wine in our cooking that we always pick a really good vintage and quality wine. We always find that it elevates the taste of the dish really well. So today we've selected a really nice vintage $4 bottle of Gossip Moscato. So same with the stock when we're adding the wine in. We want to wait till that wine is absorbed into the rice before we add too much more liquid in. You can add a little bit of stock and wine together, or you can just add all the wine in at once. You want to add about the same amount of wine in as you would when you're adding the stock in at the start. Anna very much likes to employ the one for you, one for me technique when she's using her wine. Okay, so as we make our way through most of the liquid, you'll start to see the rice really swell up and cook through. It will stick to the pan a lot more and come together really well once all the liquid starts to absorb each time you do it. So it's really important that we're doing this process slowly when we're letting the rice absorb all the stock and wine. We want to make sure that the rice gets cooked right through at the end of the process so that we're not getting that grainy, hard feeling. As you can see, it's also a great one-handed dish if one of your kids is being a brat. You can hold them and cook the risotto. So as we get towards the end of our liquid, we can start just checking to make sure the rice is softening up and cooked through. You may or may not need all your stock. It just depends on how it tastes and I guess how wet you want to make it or how gluggy it seems to be going. Again, it's not one of those slow processes. Keep tasting, keep drinking, and all be good. So it's been about 25 minutes maybe. The rice has almost cooked the whole way through and we've nearly used all of our stock. So we're almost ready to start adding the other ingredients in. Like sand through the hourglass, these are the days of our lives. Okay, so now our rice is completely cooked through. We can start adding in the other ingredients. So that's the consistency we're kind of looking for. A little bit like porridgey looking stuff. Okay, so my man Boobies aren't good for much, so Hannah's just having a quick break to breastfeed rhythm. So while she's doing that, I'll add in the rest of the ingredients. Now when you've got your tongs in the kitchen, it's always a good idea to make sure they're working properly before you start using them. These seem to be all good. So first what we'll do is we will add in our chicken. Just be careful if you have got some stuff that's got liquid in it as well, about how much extra liquid you're possibly putting into it when you're putting other ingredients in. And we'll add in our sun-dried tomatoes. Add in our avocado. So once that's all mixed through, just make sure you're happy with the consistency of it. Now, we're going to add a little bit of cream cheese into this as well. You don't have to do this. It just gives it that nice extra flavour and sort of cheesy consistency as well. Huh. All done. So there you go. All done. What are you doing? Well,
They're filming.
Jesus. All right. Okay, all done. So there we go. All finished, all mixed together. We're just going to add a little bit of shredded parmesan on the top. And of course, just our garnish. You don't have to do this at home, but again, just makes it a little bit nice for presentation. Beautiful. So next time we'll be doing some keto-friendly snacks. I think we're going to do a keto chocolate brownie and some chocolate chip biscuits as well. So we'll see you then.